Hi everyone, welcome to Raise the Bar, the podcast where we learn from leaders who push boundaries and inspire us to think bigger. I'm Rehan Khimji, your host and the founder of Snack, India's first protein bars created specifically for teenagers. As a young founder in the food and nutrition space, I've realized that building a brand isn't just about taste, marketing, or growth. It's also about safety, compliance, and doing things the right way, even when it's hard. That's exactly what today's conversation is about. Understanding the systems, standards, and leadership required to build brands people can truly trust. Joining us today is Mr. Ashwin Bhadri, a seasoned entrepreneur, mentor, and the founder and CEO of Equinox Labs, one of India's premier FSSAI approved and NABL accredited food, water, and air testing laboratories. Under his leadership, Equinox Labs has grown into a pan-India operation, serving tens of thousands of clients, training hundreds of thousands on food safety, and building high-quality compliance solutions that help brands and businesses succeed. Mr. Ashwin has also mentored hundreds of startups and is actively shaping the future of food safety and quality standards in India. Mr. Ashwin, thank you so much for joining us today on Raise the Bar. It's an honor to have you here.
It's my pleasure, yeah.
So, Mr. Ashwin, what was that one moment that pushed you to start Equinox Labs? Was it a personal experience or like a larger problem you felt no one was solving properly?
So I think it was a bit of both. When I conceptualized Equinox Labs, I was working in a water treatment company at that time. I realized that there are no professional laboratories. All laboratories were these mom and pop shops with like 3, 5, 10 people with no concept of customer care, no concept of raising the bar, so to say. So that was always in my mind. And while I was conceptualizing that and a few other businesses, I had a very personal incident with a very close friend of mine who suffered terribly because of a food safety lapse.
Oh.
And that's when I realized the importance of food safety. So this guy who normally, drinks and smokes, he has a salad once in a while, and there were worms in the back of the salad that entered his brain, and they found 3 worms in his brain. It was me who actually helped him get to a hospital where he was convulsing, and that's when I realized how such a small thing can impact somebody's life that deeply. And so that was one of my inspirations behind starting Equinox Labs and getting to food safety. And obviously there was a lot of white space in that area. There were no professional laboratories at the time, so I thought, hey, I think we can make a difference. So
Yeah, I think
that was one of the days.
Yeah. And in your early days, what was the biggest challenge that shaped how you approach building the company today?
When I started Equinox Labs, there was no FSSAI. There was no mandate that required testing. So it was extremely difficult to convince companies and people that you should be testing your water, food, and air. So when I was 18, one of my personal life mission was I want to improve water, food, and air quality in India, right? Laboratory wasn't on the card, but I was like, okay, I want to do something on water, food, and air. This is something that affects every single person in the country. The entire world looks down on India for its water, food, and air. And I'm like, hey, let's see whether we can make a difference in that space. I happened to choose testing because if you want to improve something, step 1 is obviously measuring. Right? So I started with a lot of enthusiasm, but what I was very quickly faced with is the country wasn't ready for something that way. Most people are like, why should I do testing? There is no law that's requiring to do it. So convincing people the importance of monitoring their water quality, food quality, and air quality, and how it impacts their employees in office and their customers. That was one of the biggest challenges. So when FSSAI was bought, that was a boot to me and the industry and to the company, of course, where there was now as a regulation that says that you need to do testing, you need to do nutrition label, shelf life, test your water quality, and so on. So that was a difficult part when I started.
And Mr. Ashwin, you just mentioned about how you had to convince people. You cater to so many clients, food vendors, large corporations. How do you make technical compliance solutions feel practical and meaningful to such varied clients?
So we actually serve multiple industries, let it be somebody making brownies at home to multinational companies with thousands of food products to large corporate offices and hospitals and schools and so on and so forth. One thing I realized is the law seems from outside quite complicated, right? It's a 600-page book. Nobody has read the book, right? Nobody in the industry has read the book. So what we did was very simple. I read that book cover to cover 10 times over, and I saw how can I simplify this for a specific user. So if you're making a snack at home and selling, let's say you're making nutrition bars at home and all those 600 pages don't apply to you. There will be maybe 20 of those pages that are applicable to you, maybe 15 different things you need to do. So what we started was simplifying all of that for every specific type of customer and making it look easy to them that, hey, don't worry about these 7 pages. These are the 10 things you need to do. These are the 15 things you need to do. Here's the frequency you need to do. So we created a solution-based approach, a very simplistic approach, making compliance easy to understand and hence easy to follow.
Building upon that, do you ever see clients actually like incorporating this? Of course, it's a super complex thing, right? It's not an easy process. Do you see clients like using your methods in their thing, and how does it impact the way their business works?
So 20 years ago, compliance was only for the multinationals. Most other smaller founders would try and find ways around it. Even when FSSAI was born, everyone used to come to me saying, okay, I know the law is all this big new thing has come. They want so many different things. Can you tell me the bare minimum I need to do to kind of get by, right? However, in the last 5-10 years, that has changed, right? Now people come to me when they have an idea. They're like, hey, I want to launch protein water. I want to launch unsweetened teas. I want to launch XYZ. What all do I need to do today? I want to launch a product 6 months from now. What do I need to start with today so that I am not just compliant, but I'm also ahead of the curve? So what we've been able to do, and I think our secret sauce and maybe the secret sauce behind me and Equinox, has been making compliance an investment rather than expense. Right? So my expectation is, so if a brand comes to me with an idea, I'm going to be like, hey, you can actually use compliance and quality as a one. Right? So today, so many of our customers, if this is what the law requires, they're doing this. Seeing that difference as a differentiation. Like there's so many protein powders. The law requires them to just do basic nutrition for basic shelf life. Right? But now they will do heavy metal testing, pesticide analysis, they will do aflatoxin, they'll do so many different things, microbial testing, so that they show the customer and use that to build trust with clients. Right? Because the brand is when you're buying from a brand for the third time, it's not just because only of taste, it's also because of the customer.
Of course.
Right? So how do you turn compliance into trust? That has been a secret sauce.
Of course. And in a field where regulations and risks change constantly, how do you personally stay ahead? Not just as a company, that's one thing of course, but also as a leader, like to these evolving changes in the market.
You have to read a lot. You have to. So I read every single briefing that comes out of FSSAI. I have a team of 4 people that does that literally, that's their entire day. Not just FSSAI, every single law that's applicable in the food space. And funny enough, what we did is we actually turned that knowledge base, which was internal, into a product which is external to customers. And now our customers actually pay us to get those briefs, to get like shots of what's happening in the industry in terms of regulation. So we actually turned an inside product into an outside revenue source. So that's the fastest way of doing it, because we were doing it and I actually told one of my clients like, oh, by the way, he asked me the same question, like, yeah, how these new regulations come and how do you people do? Even though I'm a national advisor to FSSAI, it doesn't mean that I read every single, back in the day, I did every single document on FSSAI, but then I realized if you want to stay ahead of the curve, you need to know what the laws and regulations are, not just what has come out today, but what isn't going to come out in the future. So not just the things that have become regulations, even the drafts. We read the drafts. We comment on the draft. So we are literally sometimes shaping the regulations that are coming out. So when he noticed what we are doing internally, he's like, can I get access to that? And I'm like, why? He's like, that would be incredible. And before I opened my mouth, he's like, I'm happy to pay for it. So then I offered him for free. Yeah. And then another customer. So today there are thousands of people who actually pay us for that same information that we have in-house for them to access. So we actually turned our learning into a revenue source.
Very, very impressive actually. Is there like a single experience, talking about this regulatory shifts and changes in the market, like a sudden regulatory shift or market shift that forced you to pivot? How can like one person learn from that?
One thing you have to keep understanding, you have to understand that markets pivot. And whenever there is a pivot, many people will be scared of that pivot, but very few people will see an opportunity. So I'll give a small example. A regulation came out about 4 years ago that made it mandatory for restaurants to put calories and allergens on their menus. There was a cap that said you have to have more than 10 restaurants, or you have to be a central license holder, then that's applicable. the entire restaurant industry panicked, right? A lot of my friends are food founders, they run restaurants. So when I had a quick little round table with them, like a little mastermind with them, all of them were freaking out about this. And they were like, hey man, my 1,000 kilocalorie chole bhature, nobody's going to buy it. I was like, you know what? I'm a big fan of chole bhature. I will still have it maybe once in a month.
Yeah.
Right? But then I know I need to burn this off tomorrow. Right? So I had that knowledge, or maybe I may skip dessert then.
Yeah.
Two, I said, see, people are becoming more health conscious, right? Hence the regulation was coming in. I said, why don't you also launch a health conscious menu in your full menu? And where it is more, when you're counting calories, you're adding better ingredients, or you're making keto, whatever, it is going to be more expensive. So you possibly have a higher margin. Out of maybe the 10 people who attended that meeting, 8 of them went back and applied this. And 7 of them got back in the next 3 months saying, genius idea. This now accounts to 20 to 25% of our sale comes from the healthy menu, which has. So they saw what looked like adversity to the industry and they turned it around. So every time there is any kind of adversity, any kind of change, you have to always look like, hey, look at where is the opportunity in all of this? When there's chaos happening in the industry, I am very sure there's some opportunity. You just have to have your eyes open.
Just like use the moment. You know, one more thing. If Equinox Labs didn't exist today, what would genuinely worry you about the Indian food industry in specific?
So today, Equinox has played a very large role, especially in the food safety part, like the food safety auditing and training. We've done lakhs of audits. We've trained lakhs of people. If we didn't exist, all those people may not have been trained, right? We also made food safety and compliance easier. And today I can say it with pride and confidence that there are tens of thousands of companies that are more compliant because we exist. And if we didn't exist, that would worry me just a little bit, because now I don't know, like, hey, are all these new brands which are coming in, are they following all the basic regulations? Is somebody helping them with that? The main challenge is most laboratories today are very reactive. Means if somebody comes and says, hey, do nutrition label for me, they'll say, okay, here's the cost, I'll do the label, here's the label, thanks, bye. That's the approach, and that's how the industry has been, so I don't blame. Our approach has been slightly different. Today, we may have the largest sales team in the country. However, they are trained, and here's the fun part, not to sell.
What do you mean?
Why is a sales team trained not to sell? They are told to solve. So whenever anyone sits with any of our teammates, we would actually understand their business first. So our meetings don't start with, oh, Equinox is a 20-year-old company, we do that. No, it's about you. Hey, tell me about Snack. When did you start? What was your objective? Where are you trying to press in? How many flavors can you plan to launch? How big is your production? Are you doing it yourself? Are you outsourcing it? Right? Oh, by the way, doing this. Okay, hey, there are a few things you need to do. We don't say do it with us. There are a few that say 10 things you need to do. Maybe out of the 10, we do. The 7 we don't even do. But it will still guide our customers that this is what you need to do. And then consultative approach really puts people at ease, because they're like, oh, these guys are not trying to scam me.
Yeah.
2, salespeople will not even at the end of the first call ask you, do you want a proposal, if you don't ask.
Okay. That's a different way to as a sort of this.
We also literally do it as a free consult. The customer's like, oh, by the way, out of all these 10 things you told me, do you do this? Like, do you number 1 and 2? We are like, yeah, we do 1, 2, and 3. Or 1, 2, and 7. Can you then send a quote? Of course. Okay. By then, so here's the part, right? We've already guided into the whole process of overall compliance.
Yeah.
We already know their products, we know their challenge, we know their scale. They already know, like, and trust us, and we've guided them for free without any commitment.
Yeah.
If and when they decide to test, who are they going to go? They're going to go with us.
Of course.
Right? Because, by the way, just the last year, we helped more than about 7,000 startups.
Wow.
All of them, for most of them, we were the only lab that they spoke. They didn't even speak to another lab because they were so comfortable with our first conversation, second conversation, third one, and we call them, go to their place. It's such a different experience that they don't even feel like going to any other lab. You ask another lab for a quote, there is no call, you get an email saying this is the price, that's it. Nothing, there's no other conversation happening. So that consultative part has really set us apart, and because of which today a lot more brands are compliant. So if Equinox didn't exist, I would worry a little bit about startups and what kind of compliance is there.
You know, you mentioned right now that Equinox has been in the industry for 20 years. which is a huge amount of time. Where do you see Equinox in the next 20 years? Like, where do you see them? Where do you see your company positioned?
Today, we are one of the larger companies in the country. However, we are not the largest. All the large players today, the top 5 are all international players.
Yeah.
Hopefully, in the next, not 20, maybe in the next 5 years, we should be India's #1 lab, which is Indian.
Okay.
So that would be an achievement. And we're also looking at growing global. So within the next 24 months, we will be in the Middle East, we'll be in Southeast Asia, and maybe in the next 5 years, maybe expand. Like an Indian lab going global is not you heard of international labs in India. But I'm hoping that we're the first Indian lab to go global. And so next 5-10 years.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Of course. But also, like, many organizations chase growth metrics. And your company is so reliant on, perfection. How do you maintain this balance of expansion with maintaining strict quality, accuracy, and reliability?
You have to always, as you correctly said, balance the thing, right? So if you press the accelerator too hard, and if you grow too fast, many people are chasing let's go 300x in this year.
Yeah.
Your backend systems, while you can discount and you can increase your ad budgets and get more salespeople and really push the gun on sales, if your backend is not caught up, you're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
So we've always chased a very, very profitable, sustainable growth. So every year we've grown.
Yeah.
Pandemic is the only time when we took a little bit of a dip. But apart from that, every single year we've grown and we've been profitable from day one, right? Literally month 1 onwards we've been profitable. And we continue to maintain that. So we are okay with slower, more consistent success rather than just burning all the money behind the marketing campaign, being in the red, depending on funding every single thing. Because what happens, and you've seen this happening in the market, right? When you're only going from funding to funding, and otherwise you're running, if your next round doesn't
work,
you're shut. Yeah, right? So having that patience is extremely critical.
Yeah.
I've seen billion-dollar companies shut overnight because the next round didn't come, right?
Yeah.
We are not a billion-dollar company, but at least we made more money than many of them. At least we made money. So I'm quite hopeful for that. So we are perfectly fine with that slightly slower success, right? Yeah. However, we want to maintain profitability and we want to maintain quality.
Yeah.
So those are our 2 metrics that we don't really compromise.
And if a teenager, someone had to get into this industry, like they really want to be in this, what steps could they take to get into something like this?
So first of all, you have to be really passionate about this or anything that you want to get into, right? So if you're getting into an industry, either as you're working somewhere or you're starting something, and especially if you're starting something, you have to be passionate about it, because any kind of business that you do is no business, and especially scalable business. If you're doing something very small and your aspiration is very small, then you're fine, and which is good. There's nothing wrong in having a smaller aspiration. But if you are aspiring to be 50 crore, 100 crore, 500 crore, 1,000 crore company versus a 5 lakh, 10 lakh, 50 lakh company, which is very, very different, very different playbooks, right? If you're aspiring to be a slightly higher scalable company, the amount of time, effort you need to put in is disproportionate to the rewards when you start off. And the only way you can sustain that is through passion, because otherwise a normal person will burn out.
Of course.
If you're not passionate about something, for example, are you passionate about dancing?
I'm personally not, no.
Right? But if that's what you get into and you're like, your goal suddenly, you're told your goal is to become the best dancer in the country, you're not going to be able to make it because you're just not passionate about it.
Absolutely.
But if you're passionate about it, right, what that means is work starts to look like play.
Yeah.
This is something that my dad taught me early on. He's like, when your work looks like work to others but play to you, right, you're never going to work a day in your life. But you're going to outperform everyone else because you're playing the whole day, you're working the whole day.
Yeah.
Like today, it's a Saturday. I am at work. Like this is my home office. I am working. And I don't feel like I'm sacrificing.
So no days off?
I don't feel like, oh my God, I'm working on a Saturday. Like on a Sunday afternoon, everyone's out, everyone's sleeping, I'll open my laptop, I'll be doing something.
Wow.
Because it feels like play to me. It doesn't feel like work.
That's a real...
When you're active about what you do, work will feel like play.
And Mr. Ashwin, one last thing. If you could tell a 17-year-old one thing on how to raise the bar, what would that one piece of advice be?
No matter what you want to achieve in life, you have to have grit. You have to be able to take failures. You have to be able to go from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. And if you haven't failed at something, that means you haven't tried enough. You have not gone outside your comfort zone. You've not gone outside your current skill level. See, the only way you're going to grow your skill is you do something a little outside it. That means you're forced to grow, right? So if you, like the example I use is the first day you go to the gym.
Yeah.
Are you going to get big biceps and a big chest? And no, you're not, right? The first day you lift weights, anything going to happen? Noticeable going to happen? No.
Yeah.
The second day, no. End of the week, no. By end of 3 months, end of 6 months, end of 1 year, you'll start seeing effects of that. End of 3 years, end of 5 years, your entire body will start, you'll actually like, you meet out of 5 years, you're like, oh my God, what happened?
Yeah.
Right? In business, in life, compounding pays, and you have to have grit, because if you want to do anything that is remarkable, you have to have that patience and that ability to take failure. Because guess what? If you're doing something bigger than yourself, you should be, you will fail. You should fail. So at Equinox, we've coined a term. It's called fail forward fast.
Wow.
You have to fail at something, because if you haven't failed, you haven't tried anything new. You haven't gone out of the comfort zone. So my one piece of advice or one word would be grit.
That's really amazing advice. Thank you so much, Mr. Ashwin, for sharing your experiences and insights. This conversation highlighted how vision, responsibility, and trust come together to build businesses that last. To everyone listening, keep learning, take bold steps, and remember that creating value for others is the foundation of meaningful entrepreneurship. I'm Rehan Khimji, and I'll see you in the next episode of Raise the Bar.